They don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get in the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD and Melissa.
Hi guys, welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD with my wonderful co-host,
Me,
Melissa.
Hey JD, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, thank
It's
you.
nice to see you smile. Hey, listen, I am super excited for today's
Me
guest.
too. So excited.
Super excited.
She's like my favorite person in the whole world outside of you.
Of course.
Female person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Favorite female
Yeah.
person. I can see that. Hey, so today, guys, you know, we get a lot of questions all the time. And one of my number one go-to responses and answers is number one, it depends. And number two, ask a lawyer or talk to your CPA. Well, today we happen to have a lawyer. We're super excited to introduce you guys to Cassandra Jude. She is the leader, founder. What do they call attorneys? What's the number?
The managing attorney.
HMFIC of the Jude law firm.
Yeah.
And Cassandra, we're super excited to have you on today and talk a little bit about some of the legal questions that we get asked and hear your expert opinion. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, so like JD said, my name's Cassandra Jude. I run my own law firm, the Jude Law Firm out here in Florida. I am a Florida licensed attorney. And of course, before we get to the fun stuff and all the nitty gritty details that you want to know about your business, I do have to disclaim that I'm only giving general advice today. I will at the end of the podcast talk about how you can reach me if you need more of an expertise and have an actual attorney appointed to you. But I'm only giving general advice, and I always recommend you also reach out to your CPA for any tax questions that we might discuss today.
Awesome.
Outstanding. Well, Cassandra, can you give us a little bit of your background and what got you to this point in your life? And then from there, I'm going to just pepper you with all kinds of obscure real estate questions.
That will benefit us.
That will benefit us because I use each of these interviews as a personalized coaching session.
True.
So right now, it's like I mean, most of the time when I have to consult with a lawyer, it's $300 to $500 just for the conversation. It looks like we're gonna get one for free today.
You're ridiculous.
Okay, so my background, yes, and your free consultation is incoming.
Yeah.
But my background, so I was a litigation paralegal for about 10 years. So prior to going to law school, I knew that I wanted to litigate, and I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and I also knew I wanted to help people. So that's a little bit of background before I went to law school. I went to law school in Dallas. I got my JD, obviously, and passed the Florida bar, and I have worked as a public defender. I have also worked at Florida's largest defense firm, and now I'm mainly helping out small businesses and handling plaintiff side work at this time. So I kind of have a little bit of experience in everything throughout. It's been almost 12 years in the legal field, but my real niche and my real passion is helping small business owners, particularly to go back to what you said earlier. It's very expensive to hire a lawyer, and it's very expensive to hire a good lawyer. And when you do hire them and you give them the ungodly amounts of money, they still are very difficult to get in contact with. So I try to always be available for my clients 24/7, and small businesses are my forte.
Awesome. Very nice.
Yeah, great. So, Cassandra, before we started filming, we were talking about kind of how a lot of real estate investors don't really understand the need for different types of insurance and that. And I thought that was really kind of a key thing that we don't talk about a lot. And I'm wondering if you could go into some of that. And then also, later on, I'd like to talk about, setting up your entities for protecting yourself. So take it wherever you want.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So a lot there, but I'll unpack. So for when you're first we'll talk about the business entity afterwards, because your first question was about, liabilities and what insurance you should have. It's really important to consider when you're going into opening a business and operating a physical location, like for example, a short-term rental property, that you consider, make a list of what is the worst thing that can happen and how can I protect myself from that? Because inevitably, in at least one point of time when you're dealing with short-term rentals, for example, somebody is going to slip and fall on your property and then try to sue you. Someone is going to, commit some form of damage to your physical property. And, inevitably you may have some issues if you're doing rental, short-term rental. You'll have a renter disagreement that comes down to ultimately the contract that you've signed between you and the other party. So to handle the slip and fall and the property damage, it's very important to carry general liability insurance. I don't think a lot of people consider it a necessity until it's already too late. So for this category, the biggest takeaway I hope you find is that it's important to have general liability insurance. Within general liability insurance, if somebody slips and falls on your property and say makes a claim, your cost of defense is generally included. So your insurance company will handle everything, freeing you up to continue running your business like normal and put it in the rear view as much as possible. So general liability is important.
Cassandra, I hear what you're saying, but I've heard, and there's a lot of myths and when I was in the Air Force, we called them barracks lawyers. People have done a little bit of research and pretend they know a lot about it and give all kinds of advice. But one of the things that I'm afraid of, so that general liability is at and above your regular property insurance, the rental policy, all of that stuff. This is a separate, I guess, umbrella policy is what we would call it. But one of the rumors is that when you have that additional insurance policy, that makes you a target for false claims, because a lot of these insurance companies will just pay out a settlement real quick to not have to go through the lawsuit. Can you speak on that at all?
Yes. First off, umbrella insurance is different. Just to be clear, umbrella insurance is something that kicks in when your first level of coverage is exhausted. Okay. And umbrella insurance is good for personal assets to protect yourself above and beyond, for example, with car insurance and general homeowners. But for general liability, I do agree. I do tend to agree with that stigma. The problem, though, is that the one time it happens to you, it's going to affect you financially and emotionally so much that it's important to carry the coverage. Additionally, generally, when somebody makes a claim, they don't know the policy amount. They don't even know if you carry general liability insurance. So I recognize in the field that there's a lot of people that just want to make claims, right? But the most important thing is to give you the peace of mind and the financial freedom to continue on with your business. And I like I said, I am inclined to believe settlement is important. 99% of cases settle outside of court, and that's just the reality. But when it comes down to you and your livelihood, you don't want to run the risk of somebody actually really getting hurt and then you being on the hook for, so much more money than your company is yet to be worth because you're still starting out. Or, do you want to pay $2 million on a slip and fall? I mean, to me, that's not worth it ever.
And I guess really you're not putting a sign in your front window that says, hey, I have $1 million general liability insurance. Please come see me. Right.
Right.
So
please fall here.
that's part of it. Okay. Awesome. And you're just going to like a regular insurance agent and going through the process to get that, or do you need to know specifically how to request what we're talking about, the general liability insurance?
So you want to make sure that you have an insurance agent that is well versed in commercial lines specifically. They can write business insurance. But yeah, I mean, anybody in your community is generally going to know somebody or be that person if they have an insurance license. So,
Yeah. So speaking to that, I was just thinking of all the insurance we have. So we have general liability in the office, and then we have workers' comp in the office. Then we have the car insurance, and then for anybody who drives anything, then we have to have them name us as additionally insured. And then we have the policies for the short-term rentals we own, the policies as owners, and then we also have the management company insurance for managing them. And it was just like, there's a lot of insurance. But I mean, anywhere you let that break go, you're so exposed. It's scary.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And that's why, you need a good insurance agent, and by proxy, a lawyer can also advise. For example, I've advised on what industry standards that I've seen in claims on certain situations with businesses, just to make sure, hey, you at least probably need this coverage just based on what I've seen with claims and the cost of defense. But yes, it's very important to not allow any break, because you don't think it'll happen to you, but that's when it happens to you. And then you're totally pulled off, the grand scheme of how you want the business to run for the year or even 2 years while you're litigating and stressing. So it really is worth the peace of mind.
For sure.
Sure. And the insurance companies have teams of lawyers ready to not pay out. And so they're going to go to battle for you instead of, you calling your family friend or family attorney to come in and spend all their time and money fighting that battle by themselves. Okay. So now when we're talking about lines of protection, because that's really what the insurance is doing, is protecting you and your assets on the business side from being exposed. But another part of that is the setting up the entities the right way and separating. Can you talk about some of the important things with LLCs or C Corps, S Corps, all that kind of stuff, and what we should be thinking about when we're starting a new business, let's say?
Yeah. So the first thing you've got to consider is how many people are involved, right? So if there's more than one person, even at the LLC level, it changes how things are handled. So for example, I have one business that I've worked with that's in a really unique situation. It's a general partnership, technically. But because there are rules, and I can explain a little bit more, but I just want to give you like a grand overview right now. There are rules about disbursements with LLCs specifically. They've circumvented it by having a GP at the top. And then the two partners are LLCs that we've created for them. Thus, they're still protected. So what I mean by protected is when you're a general or when you have general partnership or a limited partnership in some aspects and a sole proprietorship, you are completely exposed to, say, if somebody slips and falls on your property, and these are it's not like the best example, but claims that you get, they can come after your personal assets potentially in any kind of litigation or recovery. Now, if you have an LLC or corporations, what ends up happening is your personal assets are protected because you're doing business as a corporation. Thus, only the corporation assets will come into play if we get to that point, and nobody wants to get to that point, but you want to be able to sleep at night knowing it'll never get to that point. So LLCs are a hybrid. They're kind of like a little bit of what a GP or a solo would be with a corporation. You're getting the best of both worlds. Solo is taxes are done through a like flow through. So basically you report on your own tax documents the income and expenses of the business for the year. With an LLC, you also do that. You submit an additional form to the IRS that states what the business took in and et cetera. So you're really getting the best of both worlds in an LLC because there's no liability outside of some it depends answers where you're using personal accounts to conduct business. Then they may have but you get a lawyer like me and then they advise you not to do that at the get-go, and then you don't have any issues and you're not exposed, and it's just the corporation insulated from liability versus the GP, which if anything happens, you're on the hook, your name's on everything. So generally outside of some crazy situations, like where you have to triple up, like we did with this one company due to various reasons, an LLC is the way to go. And then there's two different types you can do. You can also just do a standard LLC. And like I said, it just flows through and you file additional documents for the LLC, but all the taxes are taken out through your regular tax return. You can also do an S Corp, which requires additional filing of paperwork, but you are allowed a little bit more leeway with federal employee taxes and things like that, which you do not have the leeway on with a sole proprietorship, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I want to circle back to, because
I'm giving a lot of information.
Yeah, you were talking about your company being isolated, right? And that's keeping that line of separation. But the way I understand it, it also works the other way around. If I'm in a multi-person LLC and I go out breaking the law, I don't know, let's just say drinking and driving and get in a car accident and hit somebody, the assets inside the company are protected from my liability too. Is that an accurate statement?
So they should be. When you are involved in a multi-member LLC, it is imperative that you have a ironclad operating agreement. The operating agreement will spell out, like in 99% of cases, that if there is any conduct on behalf of depending on which LLC you have, a member or a manager, the intentional conduct, that would technically be a tort. I don't want to get too legal, but intentional torts would not be covered under the LLC structure, thus they would be liable 100%. So there's really protection all around, and there's really no downside outside of the financial requirement, which is that you have to file with the state and deal with that. But it's so nominal in comparison to both the tax and the liability benefits that I recommend it in almost every client I see.
So I guess one of the questions we get all the time, and a lot of times in real estate investing, people are asking these questions before they've even started to learn, before they've done their first deal, before they've done anything. At what point should somebody look to form the LLC for maximum amount of protection? Should the 19-year-old kid who is just starting his own real estate marketing company, should he be filing that LLC, or maybe is it after your first rental property, or what are some of the factors to consider when you're making that decision?
So to me, it would be most beneficial to file it at the first thought. If you have any idea that you're going to enter into business in any regard at all, like for example, my law firm, the second it was a thought in my mind, it was an entity, because the way that the courts and the judicial process is set up is you can get hit with these claims 2 years from it happening, and you don't want to run the risk of you not having properly filed for an LLC, and then in that one deal something happened and then they've backdated it, and then there's all kinds of issues, and it's really just for the peace of mind and the cohesiveness of it all, and really efficiency. The second you have a plan in place in your head, like I want to start a short-term rental company, how do I do that? While you're learning how to do it, you should have that LLC done.
Right. And I should just go over to LegalZoom and fill it out that way?
I would always recommend that an attorney go through it with you, because you're getting the benefit of a human being like me who's sitting here explaining. Don't get me started on LegalZoom, JD, because they steal lawyers' jobs. All right. But you need a human, and you need a human because you want to be able to ask these questions and not be surprised later down the road. And you can't, for some of these things, it's just not cookie cutter. Like for you guys, Shorefront has several different entities, and it is not something LegalZoom can effectively manage. It may feel like it, but then the problem with LegalZoom, and I'm not bashing LegalZoom, don't sue me, LegalZoom, all right? But the problem is that whenever there's an issue, it's always like, years down the line. So you've got this what you think is ironclad, I'm big and bad legal Zoom document. And then, 2 years down the line, there's a lawyer in court who's saying, yeah, this guy obviously used legal Zoom. I mean,
as well as the tax part of that, because just using Shorefront, for example, because we formed another company and it needed to be under Shorefront. It didn't need a tax ID number because taxes weren't going to be going through. It was a flow through. And so LegalZoom would not have caught that. They would have just let you file it, get the, file the S corp, file for the FEIN, all of that stuff without stopping you. So I totally agree with you on that.
When it comes to legal help and CPAs and bookkeeping and that kind of stuff, it's always you get what you pay for. And I'm sure that there is a perfect situation where some of these online, like TurboTax works great for millions of people across America, and even some small business owners. TurboTax wouldn't work for us in our business because there's so many deductions, there's so many rules. We go to a specific real estate centric CPA for a reason. It's because that's what they do every day. They're investors also, and they help us with that. And it's the same reason, when we're filing our paperwork. Now, a lot of it we do actually file ourselves, and I say we do, but I mean Melissa does. But we always get it reviewed by qualified attorneys, and we have, help because we don't know all the laws and the rules, especially when you start looking into different states. Everything changes from state to state.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I was going to say, if your back is up against the wall, right, and you're trying to do it yourself, it never hurts to do document review with an attorney. Good attorneys are going to be willing to do that for you for a much cheaper rate, and then you're still having that peace of mind. And additionally, to piggyback off that, my preferred way to work is with a CPA and the client and everybody they got all on a conference call. We get it done in 30 minutes, and then everybody has said their piece, and and you're completely insulated, and it didn't waste a lot of your time. And most lawyers bill hourly. I honestly don't know how CPAs do it, but you're only paying for that 30 minutes, so it's worth it in the long run. So
for sure. No, I think that's the better way to go across the board.
I do too. So if well, one, obviously not every one of our listeners can go to law school and learn how to do this all for themselves, but what are some of the questions that a new young real estate investor or an old real estate investor who sees the value in getting an LLC started, what kind of questions or what type, because we have all these different types of attorneys, who should they be going to ask, and what questions should they be asking to make sure they have the right attorney filing the right documents for them?
So I would say a general attorney or a real estate attorney specifically. The reason I say that is because you want somebody that works in the industry a little bit at least. So a real estate attorney does real estate deals or advises on buying, selling contracts. So they know enough about your business to be able to advise. But the good thing about business formation for the most part is it's really drilled into the head of law school students everywhere. So you're not going to go wrong if you find a generalized attorney to handle it. Also, with that being said, you want to go into the mindset when you have your first consultation of creating a really good relationship, because if you do that, then the attorney can take in all the information, kind of become like a family member of the company, if that makes sense. Like I had a client last week ask me a really interesting question at the end. He was like, if this was your company, what else would you do? And so that would be, at the end or beginning or middle, I would ask that as a business owner. You want to make sure that the attorney that you've hired is engaged to that level. Like they want you to succeed. They want to succeed with you. It's not just paperwork for them. So usually that litmus test is accomplished in your consultation.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. That's good advice.
Yeah, definitely. So Cassandra, if some of the people listening to this episode wanted to either look more into getting their own LLC started up, if they wanted to reach out to you somewhere or find out more about the stuff we're talking about, where can we send them? Where do you want to be contacted?
Well, I can give you my contact details also, because I really love the real estate jam and everything Shorefront is doing, making big moves in the industry. I am offering a free consultation with anybody who utilizes the link that I am going to provide JD. And I'd be happy to even talk through, your ideas. Maybe you're still in the idea stage. Maybe you're not ready for an attorney to pull the trigger on entities and you don't even know what an entity is. Then you can schedule. But alternatively, if you're ready to go, I'm there, and that consultation will be free, and we can kind of talk through some options that you have.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. And I'll make sure to put that link in the show notes on the podcast, and also in the video description on YouTube. So we'll get that there. Great. Well, Cassandra, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I know that you're a busy lady, and we do appreciate the nuggets of wisdom that you've shared with our podcast listeners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Real Estate Jam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.